Hey students, it's great to be with you. I was touched by that prayer. I didn't know exactly what that meant. Bless those who've gone before us. I guess that would be me. I kind of thought that was those that had died before us. But I do appreciate the prayer. I'm not quite dead yet, but I'm going in that direction. I figure I got about 150 months left, so I'm starting to plan my life. And so one of the things I wanted to do before I die was come back to BYU and lecture to you guys. And I wish that we could have a lot of fun back and forth. You know, this size of group, it's a little difficult to do that. But I do want to tell you about one experience that I had as a student. In my whole college career, my entire college career, I only got one A-. I'm really proud of that. And, you know, I don't really brag about my GPA, but I'm just really proud that I only got one A-. But, you know, with that one A-, it improved my GPA so much that I was able to graduate. And without that A-, I would never have been able to graduate. So I'm really, really pleased with that one A-. I don't think the professor that gave me that A- is still alive. But again, there aren't many professors that gave me any grade that are still alive. But regardless, let's see what we can talk about today. I think it'd be kind of fun to tell you a quick war story. I've got a slide presentation. We will get to that, I promise you. But Steve Little wanted me to tell you about my first investment in 1-800-CONTACTS. It was an interesting investment because it came as a result of my first lecture here at BYU. After the lecture in the luncheon, and the luncheon wasn't as well organized as these. Do we have a meal today, or what do we have? Well, we don't have a meal. We just have Q&A. Do we feed them at all when they go up? What? Refreshments. Okay. Well, the time that I came, the Q&A thing wasn't very well organized, and we didn't really have a luncheon. They just announced that before the speaker speaks, anybody that wants to talk to him can come to this meeting. And so at that meeting, it was myself, one student, and the dean. And this student, you know, and I was hoping for more than one student. I hope we have more than one student after this, but my feelings don't get hurt too easily anymore. But anyway, there was this one student, and this one student said, "I'm looking for an investor." And I said, "Well, I might be the one." Well, to cut the story very short, we negotiated, and I purchased 10% of his company. The interesting thing was there really wasn't a company yet, but I invested $25,000 in his dream. And then as a result of that, I also got an option for another 10%. And so we invested $52,500 in this startup. And I was excited about it. He was excited about it. We started having board meetings. He worked out of my office for a while off campus. And then finally, 13 months after I invested, he came to me and said, "Steve, I really need $1 million for an inventory." And I said, "Well, bless your heart, that's not me. Good luck, I hope you get it." And he said, "Does that mean you're not going to invest $1 million with me?" And I said, "Yeah, that's kind of what that means." And he said, "Well, in that case, I'm prepared to buy you out." And I said, "Oh, well, what do you have in mind?" And so he offered me $250,000 cash after 13 months. Now, how many of you think that was a good return on one's investment? Yeah, so did I. My wife and I talked about it. We didn't pray about it, but we talked about it, and we felt good about it. So we took the check for $250,000. Not only did we take the check, it cleared the bank. So I was so happy. I'm still happy, but the story doesn't end there. Because I met with the guy about 10 years after I did that. And at that time, the company, well, let me just put it, my 20% that I got $250,000 was worth $60 million. Yeah. We don't talk about that at my house, my wife and I, you know. We really don't. The interesting thing is last year, Steve Little, who was just here, he knows the legal counsel for this company, and Steve Little, I, and the legal counsel went to the headquarters of this company. We were having a great time until we talked about another sale of the company. And so I was talking to the legal counsel, and he said, I understand you own 20% of the company one time. Is that right? And I said, yeah, it was. And I said, I really realized that maybe I should have stayed, but I felt very good about my return on investment. He said, well, I just want you to know that 20% of the company now is worth $100 million. We don't talk about that at my house anymore either. But anyway, and that company is 1-800-CONTACTS. That was started by a student that I met after a lecture just like this one. And it was a student just like you, except he had an idea. You may have an idea. He had a business plan, a written business plan. And so that was one of my best and worst investments both. I mean, it was good at a 5 times return, but wow, 60 million, 100 million, wow. But then how would my life be different? But that's another story. But Omniture, Ancestry.com, all good investments, all made. Omniture was made with a student that I met right here. And so you have those kind of things in your future. So let's go through these slides really fast. And again, I think that I know the best teaching happens when there's more interchange. But in the kind of time that we have, I don't think we have much interchange. If you just remember the A- story, and if you remember the 5-to-1, 250,000 return, don't worry too much about the 60 million. I try not to. Okay, some people are born to push the envelope, and some are born to lick it. Who can tell me what it means to push the envelope? Anybody? Yeah. I didn't know what that meant either. Did you raise your hand? No? Oh.
Most of the time when people say people are pushing the envelope, they usually mean that people are trying to change the system. They're trying to break free of the restrictions that they feel society has put on them.
Good. I don't know if you heard that. That was a great answer, though. I look, and this is along your line, pushed the envelope up on our friend, Mr. Google. Mr. Google told me, or somebody told me, I don't know, I think it was Mr. Google, that push the envelope was a term that flyers use when they're testing new planes, and they push it to the very end. They push, push, push. And that's what entrepreneurs do. We push the envelope. We try and break beyond the barrier. Good definition. Okay. Today we're going to run through some things really fast. Definition of an entrepreneur, 7 habits of highly successful entrepreneurs, and definition of success. When I once heard this definition of success, it made a whole lot of difference in my life. I hope it will make a difference in yours. This is an interesting fact. There's a philosophy here that we're trying to make the next big thing, the next Google among our students. I don't agree with that. I think that most of you that have your own company will probably have 20 or less employees. Is that bad? That is not bad. You can make millions of dollars with 20 and less or less employees, I promise you, especially in the age of technology that you are now. So much of my teaching, especially in the foreign languages or the foreign countries that we talked about, are people teaching them how to start businesses that are small. An entrepreneur, you've heard a lot of entrepreneurs here speak. They see a problem or an opportunity. They see it as an opportunity. They come up with an affordable solution. They gather needed resources, launch a money-making business, and many of us grow the business and then harvest it. And it's interesting, in the Philippines, you don't sell a business unless it's failing. Here in America, we sell a business when it's doing really well at the top of its game. The end result of successful entrepreneurship is the creation of a new venture. And hopefully that new creation will provide for new wealth. I don't know anything that's legal where you can increase your wealth faster than being an entrepreneur. I really don't. It's not as an employee, it's as an entrepreneur. And you can, in one generation, create a whole lot of wealth. You know the success stories you hear from the speakers when they come here. So, how many think entrepreneurs are born? Well, I guess everybody's born, right? But I did see some hands. Good. How many of you think entrepreneurs are made? All right. Well, you're both right. How many of you know Scott Peterson, by the way? Do you know Scott Peterson? Yeah, okay. Hey, I got a picture of Scott Peterson when he was born, okay? So let's see. There he is. There he is. So that pretty well ends it. I'm so glad the doctor put his hand there because, you know, this is BYU. But anyway, so this is a picture of Scott, entrepreneur, born an entrepreneur. Scott Peterson, born an entrepreneur. All right. If you woke up tomorrow as an entrepreneur, how would you be different? How would you be different? You know what? If we were in a regular classroom, I'd love to discuss this. But we're not in a regular classroom, so we just have to go through it quickly. What habits would you have that you didn't have today? How would you operate differently? How would you think differently? How would you see the world differently if you were born as an entrepreneur tomorrow morning when you woke up? One of the keys to success is good habits and routines, so that you establish these habits and you do them over and over and over. So what we're going to do is talk about some of these habits. You know, we give Steve Covey credit for the idea of 7 habits, but 7 habits have been around a long time, and what a wonderful man he was. So I kind of borrowed this title from him. Entrepreneurs work with a sense of urgency. They work for a sense of urgency. What time do we quit, by the way? 4:20. Wow. We really have to move with a sense of urgency. I do want to tell you a quick story because it's so good example of this, and it's example for you. I was in the medical oxygen business in Littleton, Colorado, and there was a small little there was a small little company, a welding company, and they had a medical oxygen side to that. So they sold green tanks of oxygen in the welding industry, but then they sold medical oxygen. And a Thursday morning, true story, on Thursday morning I woke up and I said, you know, I ought to call that company because I'd already bought 5 small companies. And I said, I ought to call them and see if they want to sell their medical side. I didn't know anything about welding. I barely knew anything about oxygen. But I wondered if they wanted to sell their medical side. I called them Thursday morning and talked to someone and got a vice president over the medical company and asked him if the owner had ever considered selling. He said, yeah, he might. Just a minute. He put me on hold, came back and said, yeah, when would you like to come? And I said, well, why don't we meet tomorrow? And he said, okay. So I went in tomorrow, being Friday. True story. Went in Friday. It was just before Christmas. And I went in, I had an appointment at noon. I went in at noon, and the vice president of medical company was there, but the owner wasn't there. He said he's just out shopping for some grandchildren, some Christmas gifts. I'm sure he'll be back soon. By 3 o'clock, he hadn't been there, but he got there at 3 o'clock. So I waited 3 hours. What did I do in those 3 hours? This vice president told me a story that I consider almost unbelievable. He said, yesterday morning, before you called, the owner had an appointment with the oxygen company president out of Wyoming. And he was coming down yesterday to present an offer. We already had heard the offer verbally, but we were going to close the deal yesterday morning. He called and said he couldn't get the money together. He wasn't able to buy the company. And then you called. True story. Within a week, we'd bought not only the Littleton office, but also had an option on the Salt Lake option. An option on the Salt Lake company. Why do I tell you that story? Because entrepreneurs act with a sense of urgency. We make fast decisions. We work from a priority orientation. I give credit. The older I get, the more credit I get for the inspiration that came to call that company that day. And it made a lot of difference in the sales price when I sold the company several years later. We believe we determine our own destiny. You know, some people often say, well, I'm going to do this and see what happens. Or, I don't know what's going to happen, but whatever happens, it'll happen for a reason. I believe that we determine our own destiny, and we need to be in control of our own destiny. Yes, we receive design help. I believe in that strongly. But I also believe we need to be in control of our own destiny. We need to accept this. We need to be proactive. That's what our friend Steve Covey calls this. We need to move forward. We need to control our own destiny. We deny ourselves early gratification. This is easier for us, I think, than some of our returned missionaries in the Philippines who come from such a poor circumstance. They've been poor all their lives. We help them, we give them some ideas. We don't give them loans, but we give them some ideas. We teach them how to start and grow a business. And they have some success. And they have early success. And they get so excited, they go out and they buy toys. They go buy motor scooters, motorcycles, because they've denied themselves for long. They haven't denied themselves. They just haven't had any money to spend. Some of you have served there. You know what I'm talking about, or you've served in other poor countries. But the true entrepreneur needs to keep plowing that money back into the business. She or he has to keep plowing that money back in the business for a while. And you need to delay early gratifications. That is, you don't spend all your money when you make it the first time right off the bat. You have a first month, you spend that money. No, you plow it back into the business. By the way, we have, I didn't know there were going to be so many. I didn't know what room I was in. We have some handouts in my briefcase. They're just little. We want to make sure that they get up at the end, because up at the top, so the students can get them on the way out. These are what we call rules of thumb, and some of these ideas. These are little handouts. These are the rules of thumb that we teach in Mexico, we teach in the Philippines, we teach taught in Indonesia, taught in Peru and Brazil. Anyway, delaying early gratification is one of those rules of thumb. Any questions so far? Okay. We build teams. I think that I'm going to give you a little grandfatherly advice. I used to say fatherly advice, but I've got grandchildren almost your age now. I think the most important thing you can do at college is make a network of friends. And of course, we have an entrepreneur club here. We have other clubs. I think that building a network of friends that think the same way, have some of the same skills is really, really important. I think I'd like to ask you to remember that. And because entrepreneurs build teams. When I came back here, not when your parents were students, I haven't been here that long, but when I came back here after a very successful entrepreneur career and volunteered at the center, most of the business plans and most of the things we were judging were soloists. That is, an entrepreneur, he or she, a solo practitioner, a solo idea. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. One of the exciting things that we've seen evolve over the last few years is more and more team business plans. And so I would challenge you, as you have this experience in college, that you build a network of friends. As a matter of fact, some of the greatest things that come out of a school like Harvard or MIT, not only is being able to say you graduated from there, but it's the lifelong network that you make at these kind of universities. BYU, you have added opportunities to make networks. So I hope that you'll work hard on building a network of friends. So entrepreneurs, the current entrepreneur builds teams. They build it by having good friends. And we have a student in here, a young lady whose father, Andy Barfus, is a great friend. We can never have enough great friends in this world. We build teams as we build employees, as we have employees. I do love my license plate that says mentor, because I've tried to be a mentor, and I tried to be a mentor to employees. We build teams by the partners that we attract. And I've had probably 15 partners. And you know, partners, when you have a business partner, it's not like a temple marriage, you know. It's not for eternity. You don't have this partnership some do for the rest of their life, but very few do. You come together, you put your resources together, you have a sole goal. When you reach that goal, you go on to other partnerships. And so I'm sure I've had at least 15 partnerships. Some have been great. some have been mediocre, one or two have been not so good, but you're put together to move towards a goal. And often in entrepreneurship, that goal is a harvest. So joint ventures, entrepreneurs generally like people, and people generally like entrepreneurs, but it's hard to please everyone. So what else? We embrace change. How do you feel about change? What kind of change am I talking about? You know, the mind of an entrepreneur is very fluid. She and he have new ideas all the time. My wife has been somewhat frustrated with that aspect of our existence together. We have a very happy marriage, but at least I think so, and that's what she tells me. So anyway, that's another story. But anyway, like when we went to the Philippines the first time, we rented this big building, and it had 12 bedrooms and 7 bathrooms, and all I wanted to do was get a building. But she, being a technician, realized that, honey, we've got to get beds, and we got to get sheets, and because it is like a boarding school. The returned missionaries move in for a period of time. And once we got that set up, then I wanted to change other things. She doesn't embrace change, but an entrepreneur, we need to embrace change, because that's what building a business is all about. Now, we've introduced a new word recently. We used to just say we re-engineer. Now the word is pivot. We launch something and we pivot. We make a change. And as we build our business, we make lots of changes. So an entrepreneur's got to feel comfortable with lots of changes. We also upset the status quo. You guys all know what a spectrum is. I used to put, well, let me just tell you this. Here's the entrepreneur over here. What's on the opposite end of that spectrum? If we were looking at the personality of an entrepreneur, the way they operate, who's on the opposite end of that? Any ideas? I'll give you a hint. The word starts with B, and it's a long word. Boring? Boring? That's true. These people are boring, but that's not the word I'm looking for. Bureaucrats, okay? The bureaucrats tend to be the entrepreneur's enemy because they want to maintain status quo. Man, we can't change anything. No. We got to keep the rules. We got to keep the rules. An entrepreneur keeps rules. They're moral, they're legal, but they are changing all the time. So that's kind of the way I look at this spectrum now. So let's go to the next slide. How many of you honestly are a little bit tired of hearing about goals? Just raise your hand, that's all right. Okay, several of you. Okay, I don't blame you. But you know what? I believe that goal setting is really, really a powerful tool. Really a powerful tool, and can change someone who's average to much better than average. The results much better than average. And so I am a great proponent, as are entrepreneurs generally, of setting goals. Now, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. What kind of goals can you set in business? You're operating in a business. What kind of goals? Just let's have 2 or 3. Raise your hand. Yes, please. Sales. Absolutely. Thank you. Logan, how many sales are we going to make today? How many sales are we going to make this week? How many sales are we going to make this year? What are some other ideas, please? Please.
Efficiency goals.
Efficiency goals. Good. Yes. Yes. Good. A couple others? Please. Lowering costs. Great. Lowering costs. And on the other end, increasing profitability. You're not going to like this. This is sort of irreligious, but one of my favorite songs is "We Thank Thee, O God, for a Profit." I mean, really. You know, that's why we're in business, to make a profit. I like both kind of profits. I'm sorry if I've insulted anyone, but that is one of my favorite songs, and I'm thankful for both kinds of profit. And so one of the things I do is I work towards making a profit. And so do you need to work towards making a profit. That needs to be a goal. That's why we're in business, to make a profit. And that's why all of us should be in business. And there are other reasons to be in business. But if you aren't goal-oriented towards making a profit, you don't need to plan. Because you don't need to plan to fail. You really don't. And like I tell our friends in these other countries, if you don't want to make a plan for your business, it's okay. You don't need to have a plan to remain in poverty. You really don't. So goal setting, excellent goal setting. Here's one of my favorite authorities and what he said about setting goals. It's never too early. That was a little bit of a joke. But anyway, it's never too early or too late to start writing down your goals and start reviewing them often. There's two things that are hardest to get new startups to do, and even small businesses generally. And that's to write down goals and review them often. That's one. And the other thing is to do a monthly income statement. So you can measure your sales, you can measure your income, you can measure your outflow, you can measure your profit. I recently, not recently, a few years ago, spoke to a group of independent booksellers. They have this convention up in Salt Lake. There were about 60 in the room. I said, how many of you, this was like the middle of the month, how many of you have got an income statement from last month? 2 hands went up. Can you believe that, out of 50 operators? And I said, how many of you have reviewed your income statement? Of course, only the 2. So I thought, well, maybe they just haven't got it yet. Okay, how many of you have got an income statement from the month before last month? 2 hands went up. They just don't use income statements. But income statements are a part of this idea of goal setting. You set your goal. How much profit am I going to make next month? How many sales do I need? You write those goals down. You review them often. And then your report card, your A-, your report card is that income statement that you get. So even though some of you are tired of goal setting, I can promise you it'll make all the difference in the world. And you'll see that in a few minutes when we give a definition of success. All right, let's see. Now this next quote is really a good quote, and it comes from someone you will also recognize. Oops, we'll come back to that one. Here's the quote here. Entrepreneurs measure performance. We measure performance. That's what the income statement does. It helps us measure our performance. And isn't this a wonderful quote from a prophet? When performance is measured, performance improves. You know, we see that in our religious life as well as we perform certain duties. But when performance is measured and reported back, the rate of improvement accelerates. So there's words from a prophet that we need to measure our performance. And that goes along in business, and that goes along in personal life. I'm going to be a little personal now, speaking of personal life. Betty and I, we set goals, and we've been goal setters for decades. And we've taught our children to set goals. I have 2 goals that every year I set. Neither one which has been realized yet. But I haven't given up. I've given up on one of them. One of them is to be tall, dark, and handsome. And, I put that every year, and I'm going, well, I was going to say in the opposite direction. I don't think I'm less handsome, but I'm less tall, so I am going in the opposite direction. The other one, however, is to lose weight. And, we're on a new kick in our family, Betty and I. And every morning now, I record. I've got my goal for the end of the month. And every morning now, this is real personal, but every morning after I go to the bathroom, then I get on the scale, okay? I could go on and on about that subject, but I won't. But anyway, so I get on the scale, and then I record it, all right? And then I report back. Honey, guess what? I only gained 1/4 pound. Or honey, guess what? I only lost 1/4 pound. So I think this is my year, okay? And if you come and see me, you might see less of me next year, okay? If that goal works. But anyway, remember this, that entrepreneurs measure performance. That is the successful entrepreneurs measure performance. Well, let's go back to that slide. Opposite arrow, I hope. Let's go back. 1. If I push this, oh, you're going to do it. Great. Thank you. Students, I hope you'll write this definition down. Please, write this definition down. If you're writing anything down, write this definition down. And we're going to discuss it for a moment, and I'm going to tell you why I want you to write it down. And then I'm going to give you a little bit of a challenge. So you're writing it down. Success is the progressive realization of a worthwhile, predetermined, written goal. See, what this definition does is allows you to be successful every day. Because I've already been successful. I was successful when I got on the scale this morning because I lost a quarter of a pound. So I've already been successful. So this idea is success isn't something that's off in the distance. It's not a month away. It's not a year away. It's not a decade away. You can have success every day with this definition. It really made a difference for me, students. It really did when, in my business, when I got this definition of success. I got it from Paul J. Meyer, M-Y-E-R, who was a great trainer. And this is his definition of success, and I love it. And I hope you'll love it. If you make daily goals and write them down and review them often, you're a success every day. Okay, so let's keep going. You know, I said 7, but 7 plus 3. Entrepreneurs see opportunities where others see problems. And, you know, I've got Betty thinking, this is pretty personal again, but it's not as personal as the last thing about before Wayne. But anyway, so something terrible happened in the Philippines last week. They had an earthquake. I don't know if you knew that. And it was in an island next to the island that we lived on for 19 months. But Betty now is, and of course we're concerned. All of our friends that we know of made it through. All of our staff there made it through. Everything's hunky-dory. That's an old term, but everything's doing fine. However, Betty said, you know, we ought to go back in 6 months and help some people start businesses that are needed because of the earthquake. And I said, honey, in 6 days, many of those businesses are already going to be started because of the sense of urgency. So, yes, the earthquake was a problem, but yes, there will be opportunities, and not negative opportunities, but opportunities for new businesses to start because of that problem. All right? So entrepreneurs see opportunities where others see problems. We don't focus on, many of us don't focus on the problem, we focus on the solution. How can we get books into the homes of people faster? Amazon was born, all right? And how can we use the internet better? Google was born, all right? And how can we do web analysis? Omniture was born. How can we get contact lens to contact users faster? 1-800-CONTACTS was born. How can people do their family history better so it's not so laborious? Ancestry.com was born. I think you're getting the idea that there's a problem and that entrepreneurs see that problem and they focus on a solution. And we create systems to solve recurrent problems. That's what Amazon has done. What a wonderful success story that is. Entrepreneurs, lifetime learners. My friend Jonathan Kuhn, who started 1-800-CONTACTS, is a lifetime learner. And several years after he started 1-800-CONTACTS, we were talking about what kind of stuff he was reading. He said, you know, I read 100 magazines a month. Most of them are about eye care. Most of them are about direct mail. But he was a lifetime learner, and he's still learning. So you read business magazines, you read business books, you read business newspapers, and attend seminars. I don't know how many of you ever attend free business seminars. I want to tell you that I attended a free business seminar, true story once. I got one idea. It's called Charitable Remainder Trusts. And because of that idea, I saved over $1 million in taxes when I sold my business. Free seminar, got one idea. That's what I'm hoping you'll get one idea here. And that one idea helped me save over $1 million in taxes legally, responsibly, morally correct, yes, that word. Help me out again. Ethically correct, thank you. Ethically correct. That's where my lack of age shows. But anyway, okay, so we're lifetime learners. Finally, number 10, and then maybe we'll go to one other slide, maybe not, maybe we'll just talk a little bit. Number 10 is a statement that Scott Peterson taught me. The same Scott Peterson. Scott Peterson came to the Philippines in 2000, the year 2000. That was our first year there. He was our first American speaker at our academy. There were 30 returned missionaries, all living in poverty, that had moved into the academy, and he was our first entrepreneurial speaker. And he told this story that I'm going to tell you now. I hope he hasn't told you, but if he's told you, you'll still like the story. And that is about Winston Churchill. Who wants to tell me who Winston Churchill was? Just anybody? Please.
He was the Prime Minister of England during World War II.
Absolutely right. You get an A again. Prime Minister of Britain in World War II. Kind of a rough-looking guy. You'll recognize the picture when I show it to you in a minute. He often has a cigar in his mouth. He's much bigger than I am. He's a gruff guy, really gruff. Used to talk like that. So anyway, he was invited to speak as a graduation speaker at a prestigious university in Britain. And the president was so excited that Winston Churchill was going to be a speaker that he said, this is my chance to get some other successful speakers, other successful people to come and speak. And so at this university graduation, there were so many speakers that came and spoke that Winston Churchill had been sitting there waiting for an hour. The audience was getting restless. The university president said, I'd like to introduce Winston Churchill. So Winston Churchill went up to the podium. Remember, this story has to do with number 10. So Winston Churchill got up, cleared his voice, looked at the people and said, never give up. And then he sat down. Obviously, the university professor was very embarrassed because all of these people had waited for hours to hear Winston Churchill speak, and they expected to hear a little more. So the president said to Winston Churchill, he said, Prime Minister, these people have waited a long time. Would you please expand your message and give a little longer message? So Winston Churchill got up to the podium again, being even a little more impatient, cleared his voice, and said these words, never, never, never give up. And so that's number 10. That's number 10. There he is, Winston Churchill. So that doesn't mean that you ride a horse until it dies. Some of you will start businesses and they will die, and they need to die, and you need to start another one, because the greatest success comes sometimes after several failures. But do remember this, that entrepreneurs never, never, never give up. Now, I think we've got 4 minutes. Is that correct? I would just say that there are entrepreneurs for profit and there are entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs. And since we sold our business, we've become a social entrepreneur. And a social entrepreneur is different in that they see a problem, but it's a problem with society, or it's a problem with a group of people. It's still a problem, and then they come up with a solution, and they develop that solution, they apply that solution, and they are not profit motivated. They are changing lives motivated. And that's the difference between a for-profit entrepreneur and a social entrepreneur. Now, I think we should stop here. We have other slides. If you figure out how to get this to stop. Do we have, thank you, good catch, good throw. It all starts with a good throw. Do we have any 2 or 3 quick questions? And then I know that, boy, when it's over, and you guys get out of here, or girls, guys and gals, get out of here fast. So 1 or 2 questions? At least 1 question. No questions? Thank you.
So when you invested in the 1-800 contracts,
Yes.
what had you done before that for capital?
The question is, before I invested 1-800 contacts, what had I done? What had I done? I sold a medical company to a national company, and they paid me a nice check. So therefore, I had the money to invest. Good question. Over here, please.
How many businesses failed and why did they fail?
How many businesses have failed and why did they fail? You know, I can't remember a single business that has failed. That does not mean that they haven't failed, but I just can't remember any of the failures. But not too many. I've been very blessed. I'm not sure why. Must be my righteous wife. One more? If not, thank you very much, students. I've enjoyed being with you.